So on this one, we're going to be adding and subtracting these whole value numbers, which is great because we don't have any decimals yet. And we start out by estimating by rounding. And what's nice about this is they tell us exactly where to round these numbers to. Specifically for these three, we're going to be rounding them to the nearest hundred. So this one, I've got 3,546, right? And let's just look at the hundreds value of that. That's a 5 right there, right? So I'm going to round to that place, to the nearest hundred for that place, because that's the hundreds position, okay? So I'm going to look at the 4. Now 4 is between 0 and 4, or it's just less than 5, okay? So what that means is that this is just going to become a 0 and the 6 as well. So then I've got 3,500 or 3,500. I'm going to add this to, I've got a 7 in this hundreds position, and then I've got a 9 in the tens, and 9 is bigger than 5, so I'm going to round the 7 up to an 8. And we'll just make that 800. So that's the nearest hundred for that value. Now I need to add these. And what we can do with addition, I'm going to show this once because some people, it may help you guys understand what exactly is happening. We've got 4 place values for all of these. We got thousands. We got hundreds. We got tens and ones. Now what this means is if we just combine those, each one of them, then we should have the new number. But I suppose we should technically start with the ones, okay? Now we got the 0 from the 3,500, and we can add it to the 0 ones place from the 800. Well, that's just a 0. So that tells us that when we add these, the place value for the ones is a 0. The tens, I've got zeros for both of those as well, so I've got a 0 there. The hundreds, though, we've got a 5 and an 8. So I'm going to take the 5 and add 8, which would be 13. Okay. Now if I have 13 hundreds, that means I've got that 1 that I can move into the thousands, in addition to having the 3 and the 8 then, okay? So I've got this 1, which I can move up here and add it right there. So 3 plus 8 plus 1, 3, I can use fingers on that too, right? 8 plus 3, 8, 9, 10, and then, I'm sorry, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then the 1, 14? No, what the heck? What did I do? Let me start over on that, okay? 8, 9, 10, 11, that's the 3, and then the 1 is 12. Bam. 12. But I used up the 1 from the hundreds position, okay? So when I write this out, I'm going to start with my thousands, which I've got 12 of, right there. And then in the hundreds, I've got a 3, a 0 for the tens, a 0 for the ones. That's it. We'll round these to the nearest hundreds position, and then we'll add these two. So starting with the 9 here, this 7 is going to make that 9 round up to a 10. So yeah, that's going to round this 9 up to a 10, but this 9 also will round up to a 10, giving us 50,000. Now that, again, just happened from rounding to the nearest hundreds, right? So on the next one, the 3, the number to its right is a 2, which is less than 5. So that means it's just going to drop down to 300.
So it would be 50,300?
I prefer to add these vertically. So I'm going to start with this number, 50,000. And then I'm going to add the 300, but I'm going to put the place values with the other place values. So see, this 0 is in the ones position. Same with this 0. So I'm just going to line them up vertically like this. And same with this 0. That's in the tens with this 0. So I'm going to line those up. And then the next one, the 3, is going to line up with this 0 because it's in the hundreds position. And now I can add these by place value, just like we did the last one, but it's vertical now. So I can add these up and down. 0 and 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. The next, the hundreds position, and yes, I apologize. I am starting with the ones place value and moving to the right. So if I have tens of anything, then I can add it to the next place value, okay, to the left. So 0 plus 3 is 3. And then notice there's no values here to add for the 0 and the 5. So we can just drop those down. And we would get 50,300. All right. So starting with the hundreds position, I've got a 7 there. And the number to the right of it is a 1, which is less than 5. So I'm going to keep that a 7 and then make that a 700. Of course, I've still got the 5,000 with it. This 87, though, it has no hundreds. So I can treat that as a 0 right there. And the number to its right is an 8, which is more than 5. So I would round that up to 100 and add these together. So this one was a little tricky because it didn't show you the hundreds position, but we can put a 0 there for it, okay? So what we end up with is that 5,700, and we're going to add the 100 here. Again, I'm just matching my place values on that. So 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 7 plus 1 is 8. And then 5, we'll just drop that. So I've got 5,800. It's kind of a key component that we're not doing this with the calculator, all right? Because for the first 3 tests in this class, we can't use a calculator. So we need to add these values together. Again, I'm going to do it vertically by lining up the place values on these. So, for example, I've got the 513. That's going to be my top number. The first number is always on the top, okay? So I've got a 500, 110, and 3 ones. And then I got the 268, so 200, 6 in the tens, 8 in the ones. And I'm adding these together. Now again, if I find I have more than 10 of any of these, 10 or more of any of these, I'm going to move that value into the next place value to the left. So what this means is 3 plus 8 would give me 11. But the 1 for the tens is going to move over here, okay? Because now I have a new 10 to put in the tens place. But now I've got 3 numbers to add in the tens place, 1, 1, and 6, which would give me an 8. And then there's no ones to carry over into the hundreds, so I'm just going to add those 5 and 2, bam, 7.
Be 8.
Now we don't need to round this one, so this would just be the final answer,
Oh.
781. It may ask you to round these later on, but this will do for now. So again, I'm going to start with the number to the left, which is 1,704. And again, I've lined those up for place value. So I've got the 521, 5 in the hundreds, 2 in the tens, 1 in the ones position. Let's go ahead and add these together. So 4 plus 1 is 5. 0 plus 2 is 2. 7 plus 5 is 12. So I got to take the 1 from the tens on that 12 and move it into the thousands. And now I've got 1 plus 1, which is 2. So this ends up being 2,225. Now here we've got 4 values that we're going to add together. And there's a couple ways we can do this. We could line all of them up and add them, but it may be helpful to break this up into smaller problems. So what that means is we always move from left to right, okay? So I've got the 88, and then I can add the 26. When I figure out what that is, then I can add the next number to the right. So again, that just may be breaking it down so that it's a little bit easier to solve. So I'm going to line the place values up. 8 and 6 would be 14. Now I've got 1 plus 8 plus 2, which is 11. So then I'm going to add this to this 32 right here. So I'm going to add that to this 32. And then I got a 6, 4, and a 1. Yeah, that's what it looks like, right? Then I'm going to add this 4 here. So when I add it vertically, I got 6 plus 4, which is 10. And again, I'm going to carry the 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. And then I've got this 1 that I'm just going to drop into a 1. So, yep, my final answer is 150. But I do want to show the other way, just so you guys know you have options on this game. So let's go ahead and get rid of this stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line up all of these, and then we can just add them as we go. So I've got 88, 26, 32, and 4, all of which I'm adding. So again, I may be able to use my fingers on this, maybe not, as long as I know where I'm at, okay? So 8 plus 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, plus another 2, 15, 16, plus another 4, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I've got a 20, and I've got to move the 2 into the tens position from the 20, okay? So now I'm going to add these. 2 plus 8 is 10, plus another 2 is 12, plus another 3 is 15. And there's no real need to carry the 1 on this. I just got 150. That's it. Now this is subtraction, okay? So when we look at subtraction, we have to have enough of what we're taking away to take away, which may not make a lot of sense right now. But I'm gonna subtract these the same way that I kind of added them. So I'm gonna stack these up, starting with the 92 at the top, and then subtract the 72 on the bottom right there. And this is subtraction now. Now, if I have 2 and I take away 5, I don't have enough to take away from. Does that make sense? So what I need to do is I need to borrow from the 9, one of those 9s, okay? Now those are 10s, right? So what that means is I'm going to make that 2 in the 1's position a 12. But I borrowed that 1 from the 9, so I'm going to make that 9 an 8 now. Because if I had 80 and 12, then my total value is still 92, okay? So if I subtract that out, 12 minus 5, so again, some people are too ashamed to use fingers, but I'm not. So 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. So 7. Now the 9 changed to an 8, so 8 minus 7, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1. So my final answer here, 17. Well, what about number 9? So again, I'm going to stack these up. I've got 1,824, and I'm subtracting this 900. Bad 9. There we go. 908. So subtract. So again, we see this. I've got a 4, and if I subtract 8 from 4, I just don't have enough. So I need to make that a 14, and I'm going to take one of those 10s away from the 2. So it's still accounted for. I've got the 2 10s, but I'm separating them, okay? So 14, and I'm going to take away 8. So 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. So I got 6 on the 1's position. I've got 1 minus 0, so that's just going to stay a 1. And this next one's already set up for us. I've got 18, because the 8 is not big enough. The 8's not big enough to take away 9. So I'm just going to look at this as though it is already 18, okay? If I needed to borrow, I would, but for now, there's no other values to worry about. So 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. And that's my hundreds position. So my final answer, 916. Now, even though this one is different, I'm going to set it up the same way. So I've got that 3,000. And yes, I am putting some space between those on purpose, okay? Now, you may not need as much space. You can cramp them in together, but just for work purposes, this may be helpful. And I'm going to take the 73 and subtract it from the 3,000. Well, here's the problem is I'm going to start with the 1s, and I'm going to take away 3 from a 0. The problem is if I borrow 1 from this 0, there's nothing to borrow there, right? So that means I've got to actually go on down the line until I can figure out where I can borrow from. Well, the next value is 0, so I've got to borrow from the 3. All right? So this 3 has to become a 2. And this 0, it would become a 10, but then I've got to take that 10 and move it over to make this one a 10. So that 10 ends up becoming a 9. Is that okay? But then the next 10, because I'm in the ones position, right? I've got to take one of those 10 and borrow it over here. So that also is going to become a 9. All right? So now I've got 10 minus 3, 10, 9, 8, 7. And then I've got 9 minus 7, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. And then this 9 I'm going to drop. And the 2 I'm also going to drop. Bam, there it is. So here we have a combined operations on this. We got subtraction, and we also have addition on this one. So we do have to do this in parts, meaning I've got to do 100 minus 13 first.
It's gonna be 100.
A little bit more, a little bit more. So I'm going to take 100 and subtract 13. So again, I've got to look at borrowing on this, because I can't take 3 away from 0. So I got to take 1 and move it essentially over, but that 10, I'm going to have to borrow 1 from the 10 to make that a 9. So that becomes a 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. 9 minus 1 is 8. So I've got 87 on this. The 1 became a 0, so dropping it's not going to do any good on that. Now I still got this plus 17 right here. So if I add these now, we've got 87 plus 17. And 7 plus 7 is 14. And now I've got the 1 to add to the 8 as well. 1 plus 8 plus 1 is actually 10. So it's just a little over 100. 104. This year I used 606 kilowatt hours, kWh, whatever, of electricity in August. Last year I used 326 of them. How much more electricity did I use this year? So I used more this year, right? But I want to figure out how much more I used. Well, we don't usually deal in life with kilowatt hours. But what we do deal with is money, right? So it'd be like saying I spent $606 this August. Last August I spent 326 bucks. How much more money did I spend this year? Okay. So what I need to do is actually use subtraction to figure out the difference between these two numbers. Okay. So that looks right. Yeah. So I got 606, and to find the difference, I'm going to subtract the 326. That's kind of big, but whatever. So 6 minus 6 is 0. That's nice. Anything subtracted from itself is 0. 0 minus 2, so I do need to borrow on this one. 10 minus 2 is 8. And then 5 minus 3 is 2. So how much more did I use this year? 280. You can label it kilowatts hours. There we go. Still everyone's favorites. Translating stuff. Now it's nice when they tell us exactly what operation to use, right? Except for there's a problem with this sometimes, particularly with subtraction like number 14. It's 6 subtracted from 40. So it'd be like saying you're going to take $6 away from 40 bucks. So I'm not taking 6 and subtracting 40, I'm taking 40 and subtracting 6.
So it's 34.
Which may sound more confusing. So yeah, it would be 34. But what this means is I'm going to take 40 and then subtract the 6 like this, okay? Now again, I got to look at this. I need to make that a 10, so I'm going to borrow from the 10's position. 10 minus 6 is 4, and then I've just got that 3 that I can drop. So yeah, 34. 15, this says the difference of 15 and 8. Difference, as it turns out, is subtraction. So really, I've got 15 and 8, so I'm just going to subtract those two out. So I've got 15, subtract 8, and as it turns out, I need the 1 from the tens to make that a 15 anyways. And I can use fingers after that. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. So the answer on this one is 7. The sum, and we'll need to memorize these, okay? Sum is addition, because we'll see this terminology fairly often in this class. So when we see sum, that is addition, meaning I'm going to take 43 and 58, and I'm going to add them. So I've got 43 plus 58, and I can add these. 3 plus 8 is 11, so I'll carry the 1 from the tens. 1 plus 4 plus 5, 10. There we go. These two can kind of bother us because they look very similar, but they're going to set up very different on these two, okay? So 24 less 14 just means that we're going to take 24 and subtract 14. And we can set it up vertically, 24 minus 14. So 4 minus 4 is 0, and 2 minus 1 is 1, 10. Now that one's set up directly, 24 minus 14. But this one is 4 less than 14. Now we already talked about less than. This is not the same less than that we were talking about before. Again, we're looking for operations on this. So again, if we look at this in terms of money, $4 less than $14 would be $10, right? So if we look at the operation on this, it actually ends up being 14 minus 4. Again, that may seem backwards, but it's the wording that makes it that way. So 4 minus 4 is 0, drop the 1, 10, bam. There we go. So perimeter, first of all, is, yeah, we're adding all the outside lengths together. It's kind of like if we were to fence in this shape. How much fencing would we need would be the perimeter, okay? Now, the problem with this one is it's missing a value that we need. And we can figure out what that is, okay? But let's start with what we know. So going around this shape, and I'm going to set this up it's all addition for all these, and then I'm just going to plug in these values, okay? So I'm going to start with the value that I know, 1. I'm going to move counterclockwise because, I don't know, it's just convenient right now, okay? Doesn't matter where you start, just as long as you account for, right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides, okay? So I've got the 1, and then I've got my next side, which also is a 1, and then this length right here is a 3. Yeah, they are in centimeters, by the way. And then I've got this length, which is 2, and then this length, which is a 4. But I need to account for this side as well, so I'm going to add that in. I just got to figure out what it is. Well, how do we figure out what it is? Well, we got that side length, which matches up with this one. Is that still visible? Am I using too dark colors? And then we've got this length, which matches with this length. So I've got a 2 and a 1, which means that this side length is a 3 right there. So I'm going to add that in. Now I can do this vertically, 1 plus 1 plus 3 plus 2 plus 4 plus 3. It's not going to matter how you do it. Or you can use fingers on this one, which I like. 1 and 1 is 2 plus 3, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 2, 6, 7 plus 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 plus 3, 12, 13, 14. Bam. 14. So the total perimeter on this shape, all the way around it, would be 14 centimeters. So we're still looking at addition and subtraction on this. A town had a population of 42,359 in 1986. By 2001, the population in that town had increased to 7,606. Estimate the town's population in 2001 by first rounding these two numbers to the nearest hundred. So we're just looking strictly at an estimation on this. All right. So estimated town's population 2001. So it increased by 7,606. And we know that back in 1986 it was 42,359. But we're going to increase it, so we're going to add another 7,606.
Oh, I thought I said
All right, so I should have read through the whole thing. So there we go. Let's round it to the nearest hundreds on these. So I've got a 3 for the 42,359. The 5 is 5 or bigger, so we're going to round that value up to a 4. So now this becomes 42,400. And then the 7,600, I've got a 6 in my hundreds position. 0 is less than 5, so that's just going to remain a 6. And then I'll change that 6 into a 0 in my ones position.
50,000.
Well, the nice thing about rounding is it makes adding these a lot easier because I'm adding some zeros together. 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0, 4 plus 6 is 10, so I'll carry the 1. 1 plus 2 plus 7 is another 10. And 1 plus 4 is 5. So my final answer there, 50,000. So we'll do this one by rounding to the nearest thousands. This time I'll do it first instead of last, before I subtract. So the nearest 1,008, but I've got a 5 to the right of it, which is 5 or bigger, so I'm going to change that, as it turns out, to 9,000. Now I'll subtract. This is 2,000, and then I've got a 2 for the hundreds, so that's just going to stay 2,000. And this one, very nice to subtract. 0, 0, 0. 9 minus 2, bam, 7.
Oh, shit, I added.
So the estimation is about 7,000 if we were to subtract those. Of course, we could find the exact value, but it just asks us to estimate. So we're in good shape right there. So we got more examples to do without a calculator. Now we've already done some addition and subtraction, so let's take a look at these. And well, they didn't give me much room, but 25. So I'm gonna put some room here on the left. So I'm gonna add these all together. You guys want me to do them all together one time or do them part by part?
Part by part.
Let's do it. All right, so I'm going to start with my first two numbers to the left. So I got 8,035 plus the 84. And adding these, 5 plus 4 is 9. 8 plus 3 is 11. I'll carry the 1. There's my 1, and I'll drop the 8. Well, now I need to add this 8,757. So there's a little bit more adding on this part. 9 plus 7 is 16. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 5 is 7. 1 plus 7 is 8. And 8 plus 8 is 16. So that gives me this value. But I've got one more value to add, 169. So 169. So 6 plus 9 is 15. Carry the 1. 1 plus 7 plus 6 is 14. 1 plus 8 plus 1 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 6, 7. Then I've got this 1 I'll drop. I think that was all the numbers. So I got 17,045. Bam. A farmer grows 451 tomatoes and is able to sell 377 of them in 3 days. Given that his supply of tomatoes decreased by 377, how many tomatoes does he have remaining at the end of the 3 days? This one actually has a lot more words than it needs to for a word problem, which we like to do as math people. Makes us feel good about ourselves and makes other people hate themselves. So for this one, notice we're decreasing that value by 377, right? It's like someone came in and just bought 377 of them, which is great for the farmer. Bad for us because it's math. But we're going to start with the 451 tomatoes. And then we're going to sell, which means we're really going to subtract out of that 377. Maybe I should have given myself more space. All right, so on this one, I can't take 7 out of 1, so I got to borrow from the 5. and I'll make that a 4. So I've got 11 minus 7, which should be 4. Again, I've got a 4 minus 7, which isn't big enough, so I've got to borrow from this 4 and make that a 3. 14 minus 7 is 7. And then I've got 3 minus 3 with a 0, which is 0, but I don't really need to show that in this part. So my final answer here would be 74. That's how many tomatoes. That's how many tomatoes there were. I hope I spelled that right, but we're good. So we got 106 less than 12,000. So let's write these out first. 106 and then 12,000. That's not too bad. I mean, 12,000 it is a big number, but it didn't have any hundreds or tens on that. Now it's 106 less than 12,000. So again, it may be helpful to think of this one in terms of money. So if you had $106 less than 12,000, you're going to take away 106 out of the 12,000. So I'm going to subtract 106 like this. Now the problem, once again, is I've got a 0 and subtract a 6, but 0 is not big enough. So I've got a bar from here, here, all the way to the 2, and these becomes 9s, and I've got a 10. So 10 minus 6 is 4. 9 minus 0 is 9. 9 minus 1 is 8. Sorry, that's a 9 right there. And then I'll drop the 1 and the other 1. So that would be 11,894. John plans to build a porch with the floor plan below. Measurements are in feet. That was nice of him. In order for the porch to be up to city code, it cannot have a perimeter that is greater than 380 feet. So if it were 381 feet, they would reject it and tell them to rebuild or never build.
Downsize it.
And downsize, yeah. So what is the perimeter of the porch in the floor plan? And does the porch stay within the code? So two different questions. Let's do this one at a time. So the perimeter, again, we're just adding all the values on the outside. This one was nice because I don't see any missing values on this, right? So when we add these together, we got 6 numbers to add. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Dang it. Where do you guys want me to start? What number do you want me to start with?
137.
137. Am I going clockwise or counterclockwise?
Clockwise.
Clockwise. All right, so 137 is our first number. And then going around, I've got a 32, then a 64, then 43, then 73, and then finally 75. Those aren't proportional, obviously, but that's okay. Now we'll just add these together. We'll do this one part by part because there are 6 numbers, double digits, and then a triple digit number, so it may be helpful just to do this one part at a time. 137 plus 32. So I've got a 9, a 6, and a 1. So then I'm going to add this 64. Oops. So plus 64, 9 plus 4 is 13. 1 plus 6 is 7, plus 6 is also 13. And 1 plus 1, wait a sec. 7, yeah, that's good. 1 plus 1 is 2. And then I've got this 43, so I need to add that there. 3 plus 3 is 6. 3 plus 4 is 7. And I've got the 2. The next value, 73. So we'll add that in, 73. 6 plus 3 is 9. 7 plus 7 is 14. 1 plus 2 is 3. And then finally the 75, the final 75 there. 9 plus 5 is 14. 1 plus 4 plus 7, 12. And then 1 plus 3, 424. They said that was in feet, so let's check if this is with the city code. So we're good. So what is the perimeter? I'll write that in over here, the value that we got, if I can see it right.
424.
Thank you. 424 feet perimeter. And it does not stay within the code because 424 is bigger than the 380 feet.